the 2025 CIDER meeting. And hope everybody is doing good on a wonderful fall day. So, Steve, you start with whatever you want, Q&A or whatever, news.
I want to bring up the YouTube chat just to see that it's working. And I'm going to do this. So it says it's streaming. Oh, I know what I forgot to do. I got to do this first. YouTube dashboard. It's always fun doing things on the fly when you forget stuff. Later. Come on. That's not what I wanted. Close. Dashboard. Neither. Close. Switch accounts. CIDER. There we are. And now live video. Alright, it looks like we are live. Better, I guess, better than the opposite. Alright, so let's bring up a couple of things. Share screen. I'm going to go, one of the rumors that is working its way around is that John Turnus may be picked as the next CEO. So Wall Street is always worried about a succession plan. And if the succession plan isn't enough, then Wall Street doesn't like it and the stock prices are harmed. So John Turnus has been there for a while. Let me see if it even says. He is one that shows up in a lot of the videos. So he joined in 2001. That's good. Nope. I'm getting an echo of me. Is that me or is that... Alright. Let's see if it goes away. And so Apple stock is a big deal. Let's see, what is Apple stock today? 258. So it's one of those stocks that, even though it has ups and downs, it generally is a climbing stock. Let's see, there was a market cap 3.83 trillion. I think Microsoft and Nvidia both crossed the 4 trillion mark and fell back a little bit a week or so ago. So it's almost impossible to imagine a stock market value of $1 trillion. And now we've got several companies pushing $4 trillion. Up 120% in the last 5 years. So that's invent a time machine, go back in time. That was in the Forrest Gump movie, where Forrest bought some stock in a little startup fruit company called Apple, he thought. All right, let's see. Anything interesting in Apple's news? Apple Arcade is getting NBA 2K26. I don't know. It's 2026. Why do they have 2K26? We had all this 2K branding for the year 2000, so they've kept doing that. So if you're into basketball, it'll be available free as part of your Apple Arcade subscription, which I think is $5 a month. It's a great way to get a lot of different casual games. Is in the arcade, Apple Arcade. Let's see, restoring the redwood forest. If anyone's going to Tokyo, the new Apple Store in the Ginza has opened. If anyone has an Apple Vision, a couple of new films are coming out. Is Marty here? He's one of our people that has the Apple Vision. Close you subscriptions. Let me bring up. There we are, YouTube, and mute, so I don't get echoes there. Anyone see the F1 movie in the theaters or on Apple TV yet? Any Formula One fans? I haven't got around to it yet, but apparently it's good even if you're not a Formula One racing fan. Of course, Brad Pitt being a pretty popular actor. Let's see. So a lot of stories on the Apple TV shows that they make and how they make them all with Apple products. Let's see. Yeah, Apple had a lot of Emmy nominations for their the studio show. Slow Horses I've been trying to watch with Gary Oldman. It's amazing the way Gary has sort of become the the slovenly, washed-up British spy that he's playing, and people clean up real nice. Alrighty. Let me see. What was the other thing I wanted to talk about? Anybody else have any news type stuff? There's continued rumors about when, let me bring this up, when the M5 chip is going to make it out. Whether that's going to be October or November, if at all. If there's going to be more products this year, or it's not going to happen until spring. The MacBook Pro line is very hard to get right now, which implies there's a new chip coming because they've slowed down production of the old one to ramp up production of the new one. Foldable iPhone might come out in 26 or 27. The big thing is the crease and how often you can fold it. Let me see if I can find. There is a big rumor about an A series MacBook coming in at $599 or $499. There it is, low cost. A lower cost MacBook, presumably using the A series rather than the M series, for people that just need a web browser and email and basic stuff, which is what most people use their computer for now anyway. And so if they can trim the $999 price down, which we've seen Walmart doing with the $999 MacBook Air in the M4 config, we were seeing M3s going for $899 and M2s going for $699. So having a $599 or $699 computer that does everything most people need is going to be a big deal. So this rumor is from 23, saying the second half of 24. Now both Ming-Chi Kuo and Mark Gurman are saying possibly spring of 26. So it's one of those rumors that keeps going and going. Apple has never really competed at the very low end of the market. There was a time when the netbook concept was popular. Super cheap processors, mostly the Intel Atom series, to try to make a computer in the $500 range. But they were so slow and they didn't work very well. Windows was a hog on it, and the whole concept sort of fell flat as most people were buying tablets instead at the same price point. Then the Chromebook came out with Chrome OS, which is basically just a web browser. So you do your web and mail and photos and everything on the web like you would normally would, and it doesn't need to have the horsepower of a higher end machine, and so you can get some pretty decent Chromebooks under $500. So it'll be good to see Apple start competing with that. One of the things I like about Mac Rumors is they have this buyer's guide for the different phones, well, actually all of Apple products, based on how recently they came out. So the iPhone 17 has been out 26 days, so don't go ahead and buy it because there's not a new one coming. But the iPad Pro has been 519 days since the iPad Pro came out, so that's one of the rumors. We're expecting to see an M5 iPad Pro, possibly this fall. And let's see, the Mini, let me go back up to the top here and go into Macs. The MacBook Pro, 343 days. And the MacBook Air, 217 days. And again, those are the M4 models, so it's possible an M5 is going to come out. We may see an iPad Pro and a MacBook Pro this fall. I'm sorry, well, we're well into fall now, in October or November, and then may not see the MacBook Air M5 until next spring. But it's just kind of interesting to see how long things have been out. I love the Mac Pro. It's still an M2, and it's been 856 days since it was updated. But the longest one was the trash can in 2013, where it was 2,200 days between updates. What's interesting is the Mac Pro is generally supposed to be the most powerful machine they have, but it's still only the M2 Ultra, where the Mac Studio is using the M4 Max, but M3 Ultra. So the M Studio is faster, but the Mac Pro has slots. So if you're the kind of company that needs slots for additional expansion, for more monitors, then you go for the Mac Pro. If you're just looking for power, you go for the Mac Studio. And for average people, you go for the Mac Mini. It's been 344 days since the M4 came out. Starting at $599, and you use an old TV or an old monitor you have lying around. The M4 Mini is an amazingly powerful little computer. All right. Yeah, Rick, you got a question?
There was a news item that I came across. Apparently, SSL certificates are going to have to be renewed every 47 days come 2029.
Yeah, they're pushing for 30 days eventually.
And we're all like, if you're a web developer, just scratching your head and saying, how am I going to do this? Because it's a pain as it is right now to do it even once a year.
So they're expecting you to set up automation, and so the certs are automatically renewed. What is the renewal program? I tried to set it up for our FileMaker server, but FileMaker didn't like what we were doing, and I think it's because it was an old version of FileMaker. But yeah, so SSL cert is a testament that the website you are going to is who they claim to be. And Let's Encrypt with Acme, and a CertBot is the automation tool. So when you go to a website, the SSL certificate, it gives you the confidence that who you're at is really who you think you're at. So when you go to PayPal, you can buy something and you know it's really coming from PayPal. The danger becomes when a certificate expires, the bad guys can mimic PayPal, for example, and if somebody loses their certificate key, which has happened now and then, there's a couple of certificate authorities that ran into problem when they lost their master keys. And they got removed from a certificate authority, then anyone can mimic that website, and you think you're at the real website because the SSL cert has passed. The danger is the longer the cert is valid for, the more likely it is to either be compromised or be lost. If the company dissolves, then the cert is still valid, and there's no company there behind it anyway. Someone else could take it over. So a lot of companies have started using Let's Encrypt because it gives you free certificates. The other problem with certificates is they've been really expensive. And free certificates from Let's Encrypt expired in 90 days, and you would configure CertBot so that every 89 days it automatically updates your certificate for free forever. And so now the industry is moving down to 47-day certificates. Where was it? There was a website I saw. Yeah, get ready for 47-day certificates. No, sign up for their email list, and they'll tell you how to do it. So what we've kind of expected to happen is new businesses are coming up to automatically renew your certificates for you, and for small developers using CertBot to automatically renew the certificate, and there's no real there's no what's the word I want? There have been breaches of security certificates and fake websites popping up, but it's not that common. So it's like changing your password every 90 days in case someone got it. Well, then you should change your password every day. But what if they got it this morning? So then you should change your password every hour, which is basically what the two-factor is. Your password changes every time you use it because you get a new two-factor code. And so with SSL certs, you can be assured that the website you're going to is really the website it claims to be. The problem is that there's still homograph attacks. There was a big issue with PayPal a few years ago. Let's see, PH attack, where the P in PayPal was actually a Greek rho, but it looked enough like a P that it caught people. Or the A was the Greek or Cyrillic A that looks exactly like an English A, but to a computer it's different. And so people were going to PayPal.com, they thought, and there was a valid certificate that said PayPal.com, but it was using characters from other languages, so it wasn't really the site you thought it was. In fact, in one of the examples they gave, let me see if I can find it here. Apple.com was one of the websites they spoofed. So part of the industry is saying there's no need to shorten certificates that much because there hasn't been any big threat against them. The other half of the industry is saying, well, there could be a threat against them, so let's get it over with while we're here. But yeah, you're right, Rick. As small developers are running into more issues, needing to add automatic certificate renewal, so you don't have to do it yourself.
Yeah, it's always been a pain, and the only thing I see is that the big guys, force you to renew your certificates more often so they get more money.
Well, that's one of the reasons Let's Encrypt. I think they said they're running 40% of the internet now for free certificates.
Yeah.
What do I want to say? Installed. Base. No. How many people? How many websites are using? Mind my spelling. Yeah, 225 million websites, and they're issuing 1.5 million new certificates a day. So they're getting ready to ramp up for the new 47-day certificates. So it's basically
Yeah, but
cutting the 90 days in half.
yeah, but they could end up going not free, and then they'd say, "Oh, look, we own the internet."
Yeah, they are owned by EFF, is it? A nonprofit research group. And who is their big funding? Yeah, EFF, Mozilla, Cisco, Facebook, Google, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So they have a lot of big money behind them. Founded by the Electronic Frontier Foundation and Mozilla. So there are a lot of good intentions. But even here, so is the Wikipedia. They're struggling now. There's so many attacks against the truth and alternate facts that Wikipedia is running into problems. They need more volunteers to fix problems that people come in and change. And a little bit of money now and then doesn't hurt.
All right, Steve, thanks for discussing that issue.
Yeah. Hi, Chuck. How you doing tonight? Oh, you're muted at one end or the other. I think in Google Meet you're muted.
I am.
There
Sorry
we are.
about that. Yes, I got started a little late. I got hung up in traffic on the way back from dinner.
Yeah, we started a little late because I was running late from work, and the joke was it's 10 after 7, so that's about on time, right?
Yeah, exactly. How's the crew doing here?
So far, so good, I think.
We're doing well.
Good.
Is that a background, Rick, or are you actually on your patio?
That is a
It's a
background.
background, yeah. It looks like Dave Chamberlain's house. A little
It does. That's what I thought when I saw it.
Neat. Well, shall we let Chuck? Did you have a specific topic you want to talk about, Chuck, or were we just gonna wing it?
No, I have a couple things ready for Adam to try to get him going. But I guess I always like to start these out by saying, what do you want to hear about? Anything in particular on your minds?
Yep.
And if not, then I can riff forever.
Yeah. Was it Isaac Asimov that said once, if you want me to talk for 3 hours, I'm ready now. If you want me to talk for 5 minutes, give me a month.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, anything on anybody's mind that they're seeing in the news or seeing out of Apple that you're really struggling with?
We started seeing more and more of the iPhone 17s in the wild, so there haven't been too many reports about problems there.
Nope, I've got this one sitting right here. And whoops,
Did you go?
There we go.
Oh, you didn't go for the orange one. How are we supposed to know it's a 17?
Well, if you look really closely, it's blue.
Yep.
I got the blue one. I've always been sort of a dark phone guy.
Mm-hmm.
I just, even sober, because I think it's because of the video backgrounds. That I never understood the white iPads, the white iPhones. If I'm going to watch video on them, I want the darker bezel.
Yeah.
So that's just my personal preference. But
one of the guys in our office loves orange. He's got an orange Jeep, and so he said, "Oh, I wasn't going to get a Pro this year, but now I have to."
Well, the other thing that I'm hearing about from the people who did get the orange ones is that no matter where they are in public, people are walking up to them and saying, "Is that the new iPhone? Is that the new iPhone?"
That's how you know.
And yeah, if you are into that kind of recognition, that's great. I experienced that with the original iPhone. I experienced that with the Apple Watch, and it's fun about the first 3 times it happens, and then it becomes annoying. And it's like, yes, this is it. Go buy your own. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I have had zero problems with it. It has been, not a non-event, because with the advent of iOS 26, I'm finding that I'm still finding little things that I like, maybe little adjustments I need to make. But it's terrific. The one thing I will tell you is I've been super impressed by the zoom,
Yep.
including the 40x digital zoom. Now don't make any mistakes here. It's not going to be the same as an optical zoom or even a 10 or 15 digital zoom, but whereas the ones before were just all they do is give you a jumble of pixels. This has actually turned into something that I can use. The other part of that, though, is, and I was radically skeptical of it until I got my hands on it. When you start going above about 8 or 10x, your hand, you got to be on a tripod.
Yep.
And of course, at 40, that's insane. And so as a result, I did the first weekend I took it out and was using it. I went to a music festival and was doing close-ups of the band with no tripod, just not expecting to get anything. And I got some pretty decent shots that I would not be embarrassed to show you, or embarrassed to show anybody else, with the caveat that, this is how they were taken. This is what they were taken with. But if you have any experience in those areas, yeah, it's kind of amazing what Apple's done with that, both the stabilization as well as the AI enhanced resolutions.
Yep.
Yeah. Beyond that, again, it's wow. Okay, that's a little scary right there. Beyond that, I'm really liking iOS 26 and some of the new features. I am not. Oh shoot. Sorry about that. I am not a liquid glass hater like some people are. I think it does have its place. I have only been able to use it on my phone and my iPad, because I have not put it on my production Mac. I did put it on a secondary one, but again, I like what I'm seeing from it. No question about that. So.
Yeah, I haven't put it on my production computers either. They did come out with the first patch. I usually wait for the second patch. But we've got a couple of test machines at work, and it's pretty, but it's different, and a lot of people don't like different.
It's all about change.
Yeah.
No one likes change.
We've got one customer that's brought his computer back into us like 5 times. He upgraded to 26 without realizing it, because he didn't read any of the screens. And then he's screaming at us that they should have told me what was different. And I said, well, they did, but you didn't read any of that. There's a big learn more button, and you didn't read any of that. And he's having a terrible problem with his email. Sometimes he can send mail, sometimes he can't. And every time he brings it to the store, it works fine. But one of the things we're worried about is he was using a weird, weird's not the right word, a smaller email provider that looks like it's been purchased 3 or 4 times, and now Network Solutions owns them. And we don't know if they're changing things at their end, or they're going to change some in the something in the background. But it's supposed to be just plain. I think he's even using POP. He's not even using IMAP, which maybe start being the problem, because I did just read that Google is going to stop supporting POP.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I didn't even know that POP was still a thing.
Yeah.
To any significant degree. That brings up an interesting question or point. Excuse me. That I constantly hear people complaining about email providers and who they're using, and the fact that, well, I changed services, so now I have to change my email address. And I keep saying, number one, use your Apple ID, your Apple email address. Mm-hmm. But better, in my opinion, is figure out a domain for yourself and go buy that domain, and then you can move around as much as you want, and let let them host, whether it's fast mail or yeah, excuse me, guys, whether it's fast mail or Hover or a dozen of the other email folks. You can move your domain over there relatively simply, and it's yours.
Yep. We have a lot of
And
people
so,
still using their ISP email. Here in Rochester, it was Frontier and Roadrunner forever. Frontier got out of the email business and sold everything to Yahoo, which I've been reading a lot of the ISPs around the country are doing. I think Cox did it, and I think Comcast is doing it. So now Yahoo is supporting mail, so your email address didn't change. But we've seen with Roadrunner, if you change internet providers, your mail is gone. They have no provision for keeping your old mail. So I always joke that changing your email address is worse than physically moving, because at least there's only one post office you can file a change of address form with.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I said I was talking about moving it around, and you're absolutely right. You really have to pay attention because you may end up having to leave some of your email behind. But at the end of the day, just take control of your email, just like anything else you want to take control of. And sorry, that's a play on Take Control Books, which is not absolutely not intended, but there are better ways to do it. And so I've owned my own domain, and therefore I have my domain hosted where I have my websites hosted, and it works out really, really well. So
Yep.
and it's not that expensive. And even frankly, this is now 2025. I'm still surprised when I go and somebody asks for my email address and I give it to them, and they kind of give me a funny look, and it's like, that's your name. It's like, yeah. And it's like, well, but that's your email address too. I'm shocked that there are still people out there that are that what's the word I want? Tech unsavvy, that they just don't appreciate it. So I figured it out.
Yep. And there is a Take Control of Apple Email by Joe Kissel. first published. Updated June 8th, 2025. All right. Updated for Sequoia.
Yep.
Right,
and I know there's also some. There also is some additional information in Joe's new Take Control of Tahoe for all of the Apple applications that were updated with Tahoe.
Yep. Rick, you have a question?
Yes, I was wondering, Chuck, do you use any of the AIs to help with your writing or any of your videos and that type of thing?
Yeah, I don't mind. So those are two separate questions. I have been using Chat GPT and a couple of the others. I've played with a couple of the others. Chat GPT is the one I decided to pay for because it seemed to be the one that was adding the features the fastest. There are some of the others that I've kind of come to like. I play a little bit with Notion and the fact that they communicate with several AIs. I'm very careful because, like every company, my company has restrictions on what I can use it for. The general rule is just don't upload anything proprietary to the company or to a customer. But as far as just general queries about things, I find it to be really, really useful. I've seldom take the output of any of those tools and then use it untouched. I usually prefer to customize it a little bit so it sounds a little bit more like my style, but more importantly that it doesn't sound like an AI. I have had, in fact, yesterday I think it was, I lose track of the days. I had my first experience with an AI lying to me. Because it said something, and I said, "Are you sure?" And it came back and said, "No, that was not accurate." So I asked it why it misrepresented the information, and it took about 4 minutes for it to churn through that, and it basically apologized and said that it had misinterpreted some of its source material. So I'm slowly but surely learning that if there's anything in doubt, anything that looks even a little bit shaky, I'm going to ask, please, are you sure? Are you sure? Is that accurate? And pinpoint the question.
I found that it helps sometimes to ask it to cite its sources and to give you links to the sources, and
Yes.
then you can catch it lying quite a bit.
Yeah.
And one of the guys on I think it was Alex on MacBreak was saying he always adds in his prompt, make sure to use accurate sources, and then that's cut down on lying for him.
That's interesting. To answer the second part of the question with the video, yes, I don't use any AI processing in the video itself, but I do use some AI post processing for the audio through a service called Auphonic, and it goes through, it levels out the speakers to as great a degree as it can. You can change exactly what models of their processing that you want to use. I try to find the ones that sound the most natural, but still enhance it and still take out maybe some of the. There's no way you're going to take out the ums and ahs, especially in a video. Doing it in audio is a piece of cake, but doing it in video, then you end up with jump cuts all over the place. And I hate jump cuts, because one minute I'm here, then I'm over here, then I'm over here, and it's like, no, that takes everybody out of it. So. But yeah, and I've used a number of the other options as well. There's so many services out there now that are offering so many great things that, first of all, you can go broke using them if you're not careful. But you also, if you're not testing this stuff out, if you're not trying, then you're kind of leaving some experiences and some benefits on the table. And I look at it as a way for me to continue to learn and to continue to use the tools, because these tools right now are the worst they will ever be. They're only going to get better. And so if I train on them now, maybe I'll be ahead of the game when they get better.
So video, one thing that would be a good addition is if they could come up with a match move algorithm. So that would get rid of the choppy cuts that you're talking about.
You're right. Apple actually has in Final Cut in the dissolve transitions. Forgive me, I don't have it in front of me, and I can't tell you what it is, but it's there, and it does do a very gentle morphing, if you will. So now, if I'm like this, and now I cut to something like this, no, it can't fix that. But if I'm sitting here talking to you like this, and I pause that much, and the next time I pause that much, it will put the two together so you can't see it. I would defy you, because I've used it a few times. Sometimes it just can't do it adequately, and it's so obvious that you just accept it and do a regular transition. But there are other times that I've used it, and I would defy you to identify the spot.
What about that AI actress, Tilly Norwood? I've seen the articles. I haven't actually seen any of the video yet.
Yeah, I've seen the video, and in fact, we just had a really great discussion on the live show the other night, and that actually today it's very timely because I just released that today about that, and there are a lot of different feelings about it. I respect all the positions, but I do feel like at times there are folks out there that are fighting the future. Sort of the way that you say that AI is going to take jobs. Well, yes, AI is going to take jobs, but AI is going to create a lot of jobs too. We heard this. We heard this the whole way back to spreadsheets. Oh my God, spreadsheets! The accounting industry is going to fold up and blow away. And no, it didn't. It just became a tool that those people with the knowledge and the experience and the expertise could do more, better, faster. They could do analysis that they could never do before by hand. It never made economic sense.
I actually just heard a podcast where someone whose grandfather or great-grandfather owned a company that made wagon wheels, the steel bands for wagon wheels. And when the car came along, they morphed into making piston rings because they knew how to make a perfectly circular piece of metal.
Yep.
And no, 150 years later, there's companies still in business, still working away. But
Yeah, that's. I mean,
there was a
yeah.
1981 Michael Crichton movie called Looker with Susan Day, Albert Finney, and James Coburn. Um,
Yep.
I love the premise of it because it was so futuristic. They scan a 3D scan of a model. No one knew what 3D scans were in 1981. Star Wars hadn't done them yet. Sent them to cosmetic surgery for minor imperfections, and then did a full working 3D model, and then killed the actress so they could not have to pay her to put the digital actress in their commercials. So
Yeah.
all but that last part, And
Yeah.
Albert Finney was the cop that tracked them down.
And look, I want to be careful here. But what did you say? 1980, whatever
Yeah.
movie. So there are no spoilers here if you haven't seen it. But the only thing you didn't mention is the eye tracking technology that was proposed or predicted in that, where the camera or the computer would be able to tell you exactly what you were looking at, and they didn't want you. Forgive me, this is not a sexist comment. It just is the way it is. But they didn't want you looking at the model's bust. They wanted you looking at the product.
Yep.
And so they were constantly manipulating, trying to figure out a way to force you to be looking at what they wanted you to look at. And I feel like some of that is already here.
Well, that's one of the criticisms I've heard of 3D movies, not 3D, spatial movies, is that in a traditional movie, the director is pointing the camera at what he wants you to look at. In a spatial movie, you could be looking at somewhere else and miss what's going over on this other side. So it's
Absolutely.
a completely different movie making.
Yeah, and so does that mean that the director has a bigger challenge to make sure that you're paying attention to what they want to? Or does it encourage people to watch the movie 2 and 3 and 4 times because they might have missed something, or they saw what the director wanted them to, and they want to see something else in that world? It's sort of like I don't know if any of you have played with any of the 360 cameras that have been out, and I mean like the affordable ones, the consumer level. And yeah, it's kind of cool the first couple times you do it, to take everything around you and capture it. I had one and took it to a concert, and it was great because the band's up there, and then I could see what the crowd reaction was behind me and all that. And that novelty wore off real quick because I knew what I wanted, where I wanted the attention to be. I knew what I wanted to be watching. So unless there ended up being a fight in back of me that I needed to document for purposes of a lawsuit,
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, it's sort of wasted pixels.
So maybe 180 is enough, just in front of us. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather spend my money capturing a better quality 180 than a lesser quality 360 in probably 90% of the circumstances. So but these are all things that are going to be driven by the customer and by the viewer and by what commercial demand dictates. And again, I think you're right. I think that's why I think there's some of the stuff that Apple's been doing with some of their spatial videos. I've looked in, I've seen some of those. I don't know if any of you have gone to the Apple store and done any of the Vision Pro demos. The Metallica concert, first of all, I'm a Metallica fan, but that was particularly impressive because it was the band was in the round, and so you could look over here and you could focus on Lars, or over here and focus on somebody in the crowd yelling and singing along, and it was very much like a real concert experience.
And
sorry.
I found the irony in that is that Metallica and Lars specifically were so anti 99-cent singles 25 years ago. It's just so funny now that they've really embraced what Apple's has the ability to do, and maybe bring out a new generation of fans.
Yeah, well, I think they were very much against the issues of monetization.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, back then Napster was the big thing, and people were stealing music,
And most albums were sold as albums, a continuous 30 minutes before you had to flip the record over, and it wasn't sold as individual songs, and that sort of became what pop music turned into. There's one good song and then 10 crappy ones.
And it's too bad because, and I personally think, depending on what artists we're talking about, that has changed. The pressure has come on artists to not put out crappy songs, or as many, or as crappy.
Yeah.
But to improve the overall quality of the album, because the album is still a very viable vehicle. But you're right, it's turned into sort of a singles world.
I sometimes get annoyed when I'm listening to a song on the radio and I know the next song and it doesn't come on, and
Yeah. But if you stop and think about that and pull back, think about how our video watching, our music listening, all of these things have evolved in so many different ways because of the technology. And a lot of it specifically relates to Apple technology. So is spatial video just another stop on that road? I don't know where the road goes, but does it go to holograms? Does it go to implants in our head?
Yeah, the movie Her. And then we go to implants like Daniel Suarez's books.
Yep. Yeah, and those are some great books, by the way. I feel like those are books that maybe pointing the way to the future, just like Snow Crash was with some of the virtual reality things, and even farther back, William Gibson's Neuromancer.
Yep.
You look back and you realize just how many of those things. I mean, now they don't seem nearly as, oh my God, that's fantastic. Now it's like, yeah, I can do that.
And how much of the old science fiction stories were the idea that someone said, I want the Star Trek communicator, and so he made one, and that became the flip phone.
Yep. And the pads, the pads from Star Trek, the tricorders, the communicators, the pads eventually, now
even the memory cards, they're big and clunky in the original Star Trek, but in fact, I was just
I mean they were basically floppy disks.
Just copying my dash cam videos to my main computer.
Yep. Yeah. If you have a memory card that's the size of your thumbnail, it's a big one.
Yep.
Which is kind of staggering. So, I love this stuff because there's so much here that has developed that we've had the opportunity to witness.
Well, thank you, Chuck.
Did I?
Yeah, Adam's here. Hey, Adam.
Yeah.
Let me unpin.
There we go. Nice to see everybody.
There we are.
Hello, Adam.
Hello, Chuck. Hello, Steve. Nice to see everybody. Linda, Rick, Carol, Shirley, wow, and Bob. Who else is hiding there? Charles.
David behind a pair of glasses with a pirate. Is that a pirate logo on it?
Yeah. Well, I was just in Rochester last weekend. A friend was doing for her 40th birthday, was doing a river cruise on the Genesee River and Erie Canal, which was big fun. That was really nice. I've never been on the Erie Canal in that part of the world.
Did you get in that the parade with Seneca Chief? Is it? No. Yeah. What's the?
No. I had heard about it. Yeah, I heard there was the replica boat. Yeah.
Yep.
So no, this was just a one-off thing.
You were on the Rivery, right?
Yes, the Rivery, precisely.
We took that about a month ago for our anniversary.
It was huge fun.
Yes, you never know how many rivers and stuff there is around.
No, and so many egrets and great blue herons, and just it was relaxing. The one thing that was a little silly is we go through a lock, which is really cool, right? You're dropping 25 feet, and then you go out the other side, and then we looked at the time, and they turned around and went back into the lock.
They don't go way far down the river.
No. But it was very nice, and it was, it was a beautiful day. It was a perfect experience. The more exciting part of the day was basically when I turned the car on. I'd been having hints of this to leave the parking spot there. It became clear that my brakes weren't working right. And we went to an Airbnb. We were staying overnight, and determined that yes, indeed, the brake line was broken and leaking, and so what turned into the much of the rest of the evening. One of the other friends was a car guy. We tried to do X and Y, and so failed miserably at the whole thing, and ended up getting it towed back to Ithaca, so it all worked out. One of our friends had AAA plus, which gets you 4 free 100-mile tows, and it was 93 miles back to our shop. So it worked out. We were there with friends, so we were able to go with them and everything. So all in all, if you're going to lose a brake line in your car, it was about as good as it gets.
I lost the clutch in Princeton, New Jersey, 30 odd years ago on the New Jersey.
Still looking for it.
Yeah, on the New Jersey Turnpike, which is split into it's 8 lanes, so 4 lanes each direction. There's 2 super high-speed lanes and then 2 local high-speed lanes. And we were driving to Florida, I think it was, and so we're on the super fast, and a cop stopped and called a tow truck for us, pre-cell phone days. We saw the tow truck go past us on the slow lane, so he could turn around to come back to us on the fast lane. And it was a Friday afternoon. Everybody's closed. What are we going to do with get the clutch? We had to wait till Monday morning to get the clutch, and so got to spend an annoying weekend in Princeton, New Jersey, with no car to go anywhere.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
What is it about car tech that seems to be built in that it's going to break down on a Friday afternoon?
Yeah. Oh, it's one of those rules. I grew up on a farm. Same thing with farm equipment. Always goes on actually Saturday afternoon, because farm repair parts stores are open on Saturdays, but not on Sunday.
Sunday, yeah.
Yep.
So, just one of the rules.
I read an interesting theory that kind of has a grain of truth through it about why weekends are often, the weather's so bad compared to the rest of the week. It's because the industry shuts down Friday afternoon. And so all that waste heat that was making the weather nice is now not, and so the cold weather can come back in. And Monday morning it starts up again. So how many cold and rainy weekends do we have, and then Monday morning is beautiful?
It's always something.
Yeah.
Always something.
Yeah, I've heard less logical things.
Yeah. Well, so in fact, there has been research. I haven't looked into this in a long time since we moved from Seattle, frankly. But cities create their own microclimates. The heating in a city is actually sufficient enough to change the weather in that small area. So, you can get some strange weather around cities just because they muck with what's going around.
Yeah.
Well, Chuck, what were we talking about before I popped on?
Well, we were
Liquid
just
glass.
Actually,
Yeah.
we were talking about liquid glass, but there's one that I want to ask you because it seems just tailor made for you. Okay, tell us what you think about Strava filing a suit against Garmin,
Oh.
because this seems natural for you.
Yeah, so I haven't looked into it. I mean, I am aware of it, so I don't know many details. My understanding is that basically that Strava has a patent on how their segments work, which is kind of cool. Basically, so you can run or bike a route, and then you can declare. Anyone can make these. You can just say, like, from this intersection to this intersection is a segment, and you can name it. And once you create a segment, their system figures out like who's been the fastest or who's done it the most times on that segment. So there's bazillions of them around the world. And they're pretty cool. So you actually, Strava users will sometimes go places and actually like try to, it's called sniping, to snag the fastest time on a segment, when they're just while they're visiting. And so it's just a fun thing to do, but it is kind of a key aspect of the Strava experience. And my understanding is they had licensed the patents to Garmin, and then Garmin apparently, sort of used them in ways they were not permitted to by the license, and so that's what's triggered all this. But what's particularly weird is that Garmin, of course, is sort of the major athletic smartwatch manufacturer. So I think Strava's got to be a little careful on this, because they don't want to create a situation where, no Garmin watches can ever talk to Strava again. So I'm not quite sure what's gonna go down with all of that.
I know you, if I remember correctly, you're a Strava user.
Oh, yeah.
Are you a Garmin user as well?
I am, although I have not used my Garmin watch in a number of years because I've been injured for too long. And so the kind of exercise that I do now is simply not worth getting it out. And so I've been just using the Apple Watch because it works just fine for just recording how far I go. I'm not trying to do lap splits or things where you like the Garmin here. I'll show you. because it has actual buttons. You can do things like start and stop it without looking. You don't have to be kind of raise it up and swiping around and tapping, and that's actually quite annoying to do. I was participating in, not exactly running, power walking, in some races. That's why I was in Rochester this weekend, and it's actually quite difficult to time accurately using the workout app. It always wants to do this 3-second countdown, which is just stupid beyond belief. If you have a gun, like you start when the gun goes off, not three. You're not trying to time it with the 3 seconds. And similarly, you finish, you're tired. You don't want to be like fiddling with your watch. You want to just push a button and say, I'm done, stop. So Garmin's much easier to use for actual significant athletic activities, but I'm not, for the most part, doing those right now. So I have not. As the poor thing is not even charged. I hope it turns on. But,
that's been one of the features touted in several of the recent iOSs, is to better recognize when you start and stop exercises, because a lot of people forget to start it or forget to stop it.
Yeah, and it does that, relatively well, and it's totally fine for basic exercise. So for instance, I do this all the time where I'm biking and you stop for some reason, and maybe even do something for a couple of minutes, and it notices that you've stopped biking, it pauses, and then as soon as you get back on and start again, it restarts, which is totally fine for sort of general activity. Again, not if you're actually using it for training, where, if I'm running track work, I need it to start and stop at the exact lap, where the lap starts and ends, not when it notices that I've slowed down. So, it's just Apple has a slightly different audience than Garmin. And, what sort of built into this whole Strava Garmin battle is that Garmin has their own service called Garmin Connect, which is where all your data goes to by default from the Garmin watch. And so presumably they're adding that segment feature to that in ways, and that's what Strava's just, not approving of. But we'll see. We're all getting decisive. All these companies all just want to, they're all competing with one another, and, users get caught in the middle in various ways.
Adam, I'm not. I don't want to take us too far down this road, but now you got me curious. Is there value in the data, other than to you, of course, but is there value in the data that they capture? Sort of like the question over, all the other things that so many places talk about.
I don't believe the data is valuable in and of itself. So Strava, is not doing ads or, there's no way they can use the data to make money. I think it's valuable purely in the sense of being a feature. So this is one of the things that really separates Strava from other systems that you might use for workout tracking. Apple, for instance, has nothing of the sort, right? That if you track your workouts and with the Apple Watch, it's just your data. They don't even like these. You can do slight amounts of sharing with other people, but every social app Apple has ever done, it's not really very good. So it's really just about yourself when it comes to the Apple Workouts app, and so I suspect that it's not. It's mostly about trying to avoid Garmin just kind of cloning Strava.
I imagine the advertisers would like to see the data so they can sell an ad to the juice bar that you pass.
Possibly, although athletes aren't for the most part stopping. But they're not doing it. So as far as I know, there's no sales of the data whatsoever. Garmin's also, or Strava's also they've had to be fairly careful because I don't know if people remember a couple of years ago, there was this problem where you can see, they maintain this thing called a heat map. So you can see where people tend to exercise. And they were discovering that lots of military folks use Strava. And so it was actually showing the location of military bases and military installations that were not necessarily public. So that was a bit of a problem, and Strava had to, they reacted very quickly to block out, sorts of certain kinds of things and make it easier for people to mark their stuff as private so it doesn't show up in the heat map.
Yeah, why are 500 people doing laps in the middle of the desert in Afghanistan?
Precisely. It's like, oh, maybe we'll send a rocket there. That's what they did not want happening. So, yeah, I think they turned it off pretty quickly once it was reported.
Adam, before we dig into something else, let's get an update on your gear, because obviously we're going to talk about the new OSs
the latest,
and all.
Greatest.
Yeah, what are you running?
And I like the article you wrote recently on your new stand-up desk and how you rearranged everything.
Oh yeah. So
where's the penguin?
I'm sitting here. My penguin is very, very sad. He's here. He's got a leak.
Oh no!
And after, I probably had him for 20 years now, and I've tried to patch it. I think I know where it is, but I have not been successful. I'm very sad. It's just like having a 4-foot uninflated penguin is not very interesting. It's kind of depressing, actually. So yes, I am standing at the desk. You can see my little stool here, which I bounce up and down on. And yes, what you can't see, because you're on the other side of it from my perspective, is I have in front of me a 14-inch MacBook Pro with M4 Pro. And then 2 Apple 27-inch Studio displays. And I'm talking to you on the right one, which is always, the right one's always sort of my main one, because that gets me kind of my main apps in the left side of the right monitor and the right side of the left monitor. So like the parts that I can see the best between the middle of them. And then out to the sides is stuff that I need less access to, or I'm not looking at as closely, like the dock, or I have like Photos is over on the left monitor. I don't really need to look at the sidebar in Photos. That can be far away. So it's a good setup. I'm very happy with it. The next thing I'm researching actually is I want to get a 4 terabyte SSD, because I have a couple of hard drives that I used to connect to the old computer that were mostly archival. Plus, I had another SSD that was virtual machines, which I need to redo, because the old machine was an Intel, and new one's Apple Silicon, obviously. But basically, I want to be able to have these things easily accessible, and why not go 4 terabytes? Put them all in one place. I can use another container on that for my duplicate, my nightly duplicate backup. And so what I'm considering is debating whether I should go all the way to Thunderbolt 5, which the M4 MacBook Pro does, M4 Pro MacBook Pro does, or if that's just ridiculous, and I should stick with the 40 gigabits of Thunderbolt 3.4 USB 4 instead. So we'll just figure it out sooner or later, and I'll write an article about it. But basically, I don't really need the speed. It's more like, if I'm going to bother to put the effort in, maybe I should get it now so I can understand like how much of a difference it makes. And right now, all my SSDs are just USB 3, so they're relatively slow as that goes, which is totally fine when you're just being Time Machine. Who cares how fast Time Machine is? It doesn't come up hardly ever. So it's more like if I was going to be running virtual machines or needing to move large amounts of data on and off the internal drive, that's where a much faster connection might be worthwhile.
Have we mentioned that Amazon Prime Days are running, that help us bring money?
That's true. Is that still tomorrow? I don't know. I haven't checked to see if there's any of the things I'm looking at are on big sale. So
yeah. Honestly, I don't know. But yeah, it's all my RSS feeds are trying to sell me things.
Yeah, I mostly ignore those things, but every now and then there's like I was thinking about getting such and such. So it will sometimes bow to the time pressure of like, well, yes, it is cheaper this week than next.
So you brought up liquid glass when you first came in, and we were touching on that briefly, but I'd love to hear what your reactions are to it.
Well, I've been writing a bunch about this, and I've actually behind all of you is another article I'm writing, which is basically how to turn it off, and with a lot of screenshots, because I think one of the problems that people have is they don't. Well, if you haven't upgraded, you don't know what it looks like at all.
Yeah, how many people have upgraded to 26?
Oh yeah. Question: how many people have upgraded to Mac OS 26 to start? Anyone? Okay. How about iOS 26? All right. iPad OS 26?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we got the cautious set here, which is fine. There's no need to be upgrading right away. I do always encourage upgrades within a reasonable amount of time, because at some point, the longer you wait, the more trouble you're going to have. It's as simple as that. It's not like things get better after a certain point. And so, people who are like, I'm going to wait a year, totally worthless. Does not help you in any way to wait a year. You probably will not help you to wait more than 4 months. Get past the end of the year, maybe one more upgrade. That's everything is fixed by then. That's going to be fixed that you're going to notice.
That's what I like to say. Wait for the 0.02 update. Yeah, the 0.01 always comes out fast, but they didn't find everything yet.
Yeah. And Apple always has, by the time we'll have 26.1 at the end of October, and then 26.2 in the middle of December. And so I actually like to encourage people to upgrade after the 0.2, because that's gotten, 2 more chances for Apple to fix stuff, add whatever features might have been lagging because they couldn't quite get them in. And also, you've got the holiday break, to do it a little bit more in a relaxed fashion. You're trying to get stuff done, you're busy, less so. But if you can, take a few days, after, before or after Christmas, if things are just running, life is being a little slower, then that's a good time to do it. So that's my favorite recommendation. Again, mostly for the Mac.
But
iPhone,
check your third-party apps. Is the biggest thing. I Googled, does OBS work with Tahoe? And I got pages and pages of no!
Yep. That's the big one. Is make sure that anything you rely on is good. Again, and as I said, iPhone and iPad, the developers are usually more on top of things there, because frankly, you're more likely to be using stuff that's just in current development, and also the changes are usually less severe, so that you can get away with something might be a little rough, but it's not likely to just crash. Whereas on the Mac, if it's an app that hasn't been updated in 3 or 4 years, it might really not like the new operating system. So liquid glass. So most people haven't seen it, but basically it's Apple's new design language. And what they are trying to do, and I think this is actually a legitimate thing for Apple to do, is they're saying that, hey, we made everything version 26 this year. So we don't have Vision OS 2 and iOS 18 and Mac OS 15 and Watch OS 11, and it's all crazy. So everything is 26. We've rationalized everything into get it to the same kind of boat. And liquid glass is another way of doing that, saying that we want to have the same kinds of interface elements and design language such that when you move from an iPhone to an iPad to a Mac to a watch to a TV to a Vision Pro, stuff will seem more similar between them. And before this, all of them had kind of evolved somewhat separately, and so they really weren't as similar as they might have been. And so I think that is an entirely valid design goal. Then Apple said, well, we've got Apple Silicon, and Apple Silicon rocks. So we're going to do eye candy like you wouldn't believe. And that's really what a lot of liquid glass is. I don't know if you've ever watched the video where they're showing like their designers taking these, giant glass loops and sort of moving them over stuff to see what it looks like. And the effects, I mean, they come straight out of like the old graphics conferences, where like, hey, look, we can do ray tracing. Hey, look, we can do this, with a supercomputer. And well, now Apple Silicon, the A series chips that are in the iPhones and some iPads, and the M series chips that are in Macs and other iPads have so much power. Apple can basically afford to spend it on pretty effects. And so a lot of the stuff that liquid glass is doing is just pretty. It's not actually functional. It's just pretty.
It was the kind of stuff they didn't do back then because the graphics chips couldn't handle it.
Just too hard, yeah. And in fact, Apple's done this before, right? I mean, that when we got the iPhone, suddenly we had things like, because iPhone had the 60 frames per second kind of basically animating capabilities, so you could do stuff like pulling it out and like swiping stuff and seeing it move fluidly on the screen and like bounce off the top. That was Apple basically have the computing power to do stuff like this. And similarly, even you go back to the old Macs, we had the computing power in the 68,000 to do graphics, right? The 8086 didn't have, the 8086 didn't have that kind of power. And so Apple has this history of using its computing power to make stuff attractive. Where I think we run into problems is that Apple has also said that the real focus of liquid glass is it really is treating all of the controls and a lot of the interface around our apps as translucent layers, like literally a sidebar is kind of the sheet of glass over the window behind it. And so, you can move stuff around and it'll go slide behind the sidebar and you can see it kind of blurry behind it as though you're looking through, this kind of frosted glass. And so it's very impressive. And Apple makes a big deal about how you're focusing on the content, that they're not getting in the way of the content. But the problem with that is that sometimes the content is not the most important thing. Sometimes the tools that you're using to create or modify the content are what's important. And so I think there's a little bit of form over function in liquid glass, even in the theory behind it. That's where I'm a little troubled.
Adam, though, go back to when we made the jump over to OS 10. And, that was, the thing was, I think, if I remember correctly, the quote was that it was lickable.
That's Aqua, right. So,
yes, it was so gorgeous. And that's sort of the impression I came away from with this, that, okay, it's a completely different look. you are definitely not going to mistake it for Windows.
Yep.
Because
or
it's so much
Android.
different.
Yeah, right.
Or Android. Yeah.
Right.
So is that part of the desire here, along with the claimed functions?
Oh, totally.
It's Windows
I mean,
Aero. We're back to Windows 7.
Yeah.
That was one of the criticisms.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this case, this is Apple showing off. This is Apple saying, you don't have the power to do this. We have the power. We have the power to waste these cycles. So some of you may remember way back in the day, Eudora, that wonderful email program from yesteryear, there was a checkbox that said, waste cycles drawing trendy 3D junk. and you could turn it off, and then Eudora would be flatter because it wouldn't try to do 3D stuff. Because in the early days of Mac OS X, that's where we started to get the textures and the 3D-ness of stuff, and that was what they were pushing then. And some of that was enabled by the Quartz engine underneath it all, but Apple put Aqua on top of that, and that's where we got the lickable buttons and things like that. Then Johnny Ive comes along and decides to make everything flat and
skeuomorphic.
Skeuomorphic was before the flat, but they were trying to make stuff look super realistic. So to my mind, liquid glass, and I don't want to imply that it's inherently bad. It's just the latest way that Apple's trying to do eye candy to make it look better. The problem is that a lot of these, again, are form over function. So it's not actually going to necessarily make people better at what they're doing or more efficient or might make things easier to use. In fact, I think it might make them harder to use. Certainly I think for those of us who are in the audience here, it's a lot less readable. That it is, you got to have pretty good vision for this stuff because it's thin glyphs. The blurring does not do good things for those of us who do not have perfect vision.
I did hear on a lot of podcasts through the beta cycles that it got less liquidy and less transparent over the betas.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, Apple took some fairly significant feedback early on. I didn't. I chose not to write about it during the developer betas. I don't love to do that because most of the readers don't have it. But yes, there were definitely people who were not happy. Now, I have just been talking with a developer after my last article came out, who's very unhappy about it because his app did some sort of interesting, slightly unusual things with interface that are either difficult or impossible with liquid glass. And he feels that liquid glass is not as finely grained as for the Mac, as obviously previous interface elements were. So when you've got a pointer is really pretty tiny compared to a finger. Whereas liquid glass was really designed around the iPhone and iPad, where your finger is mostly your pointer. So it's you can fat finger stuff on an iPhone or an iPad. On a Mac, you don't do that. You have a very fine pointer to work with. So it's not clear to me yet if that's sort of just temporary and we're going to be getting more control on the Mac at the developer level, or if it's a harbinger of where Apple wants interfaces to go, such that they really, really are more the same between all the devices.
But do you see Apple's recognition? Because you said behind us on your screen, you're writing an article about how to turn it off or turn it down.
Yeah.
Is Apple recognizing some of these challenges by giving you that control?
Yes and no. So the changes, basically the all the settings that you work with to turn down liquid glass to make it more of a solid interface, they're all in accessibility and they're not new. So the big one is reduced transparency. If you turn on reduced transparency, a whole lot of the problems in liquid glass go away.
When they made
because
the
you don't
menu
have
bar
everything bleeding.
when they made the menu bar and the dock transparent, people hated that.
Yeah, and that's been true for a couple of generations now. And I always have reduced transparency turned on my Macs at a particular point in time. And so I've always used reduced transparency on the Mac, and I will continue to do so. But it is interesting, and the article that I'm working on right now, I basically have a lot of comparative screenshots, so you can see how these settings affect different portions of the interface. The one that's actually a little surprising to me, which actually, again, it's been accessibility for a long time, but for different reasons, is reduce motion. And that's, as it's been there for a long time, some people get kind of seasick with all the animations and whatnot. And so that's why it exists. But reduce motion actually turns off a bunch of liquid glass's weird refractions. So imagine that you're on an iPhone and you're pulling down from the upper left. So you get the notification center. So you pull down and you get the notification center. So the bottom of this thing that you're pulling down, Apple sees it as a piece of curved glass. And so it refracts what's underneath it and makes it all look wiggly wobbly. I mean, it's the text is refracting. And so if you turn on reduce motion, that goes away. So there's no more of that refraction. And from an accessibility standpoint, again, there are people who have visual perception issues that cause that to really, really, really bother them. But from a normal user standpoint, you don't have to put up with any more refraction. It's just nice and clean text underneath if something's going to show through.
I'd have to say the keynote, when they were showing all of this stuff off, I was not impressed with it. And I thought it was very distracting. It reminded me of the Web 2.0 interface, where everything would slide around, and you'd get lost as a user.
Just because it can doesn't mean you should.
That's right.
Yeah, it's really true. And so one of the other things that Apple's made a big deal about is controls that like shrink and expand depending on whether you're using them. So in Safari, when you are just scrolling in a web page and reading a web page, the controls at the bottom kind of get small. They're still there, but they're less prominent. And then when you scroll up, the implication is, you want to do something, and so the controls expand. I don't quite know why that specifically makes sense, but that's what they do. And so, but they're not consistent. Like, they change size and they kind of come and go. And I'm not a big fan of that. It's not entirely undiscoverable. They're completely hidden. But I fear that some of that's going to be happening. And I really do not like this, approach of hiding things until you do the proper incantation of gestures or clicks to be able to get them to come out.
And that came as a response to people complaining that the interface is too busy and there's too many controls. So it's hard. If there's too many controls, you can't find the one you want. If the controls are hiding, you can't find the controls that are there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously interface design is an art as well as a science. And so, if you ever look at the toolbars in Microsoft Word, they're kind of insane. That is the flip side. And so you need to try to figure out how it is that you provide access to the functionality in an app without just making a button for everything. I mean, I will admit I'm not really I'm not an Adobe user at all at this point, but high-end graphics programs tend to have 17 zillion toolbars, and I'm not an icon person. I need text, and so I actually have trouble using those kinds of tools because of those things, and that doesn't mean that it's the only way to do it, but that's the way they've settled on. I'll be curious to see how developers deal with that, because if they want to do liquid glass, they're going to have less flexibility than they used to.
Adam, when you were describing pulling down from the left, I did it. And you're absolutely right. The refraction happens. But I had never noticed that.
Yeah.
And so, and that's something maybe I'm pushing back a little bit, but that's something I'm noticing with a lot of the liquid glass things. Once somebody calls my attention to it, it's like, oh yeah, it's there. But I personally don't find it distracting. And in fact, I didn't even know in a lot of cases that there had been a change. So am I just a bad person?
Yes, you're a bad person. Yeah.
Okay.
Slap.
Yeah.
No. So when I'm writing about this, one of the other things I am saying is that it's easy to get exercised about, oh my God, look at this, this text is all refracted and weird, and this is just so strange. But in practice, you tend not to notice, or the problem happens for just a split second, and then you move. So for instance, it's easy to take a screenshot of, say system settings, because it has a sidebar, right? And so you slide the contents of the sidebar, all the different settings panes up and down, and there's a search field at the top. It's really easy, and I do this every time because it's fun, to get the top item to smudge horribly in the search field. In reality, it's not that big a deal because you know what's there, and if you're scrolling, it stops smudging as soon as you move it. Like, it's just like I'm taking a screenshot of it at the worst possible place, partly because I can. But it actually isn't as much of a roadblock as it might seem. Now, that said, I do feel there is an argument to be made that a lot of small irritations may not kind of add up into something that you're like, oh, this is horrible, I can't handle this, but you may be irritated by it kind of at a subconscious level. Or from Apple's what Apple would say is you may be delighted by it at a subconscious level, and I can't answer that. I don't know whether that would be true of people or not. That, oh, this is so super fancy, futuristic. It's like Iron Man, sliding the things around on their big glassy random interface panels that they have in all the movies now.
Oh, well, yeah. Did you see? You can slide from your iPad up to the Apple TV like they do in the movies.
It only works when I'm wearing my armor, though.
Yeah.
So, so the real question here, I think, and this has been, a concern with Apple for quite a number of years, is that it seems that a lot of these changes are not being made with the idea of making users more capable or more efficient, or helping them finish their tasks more easily. And I would argue that is the prime directive of design, and that making it beautiful is the secondary directive.
They're drawing more new users rather than addressing existing users.
It is certainly the case. I mean, Apple says every earnings call, and fully 50% of iPhone users are new to the platform. I say this every time, and it's almost always 50% for some reason. I don't know why. And so it is true that Apple, as much as I would not criticize them in this way. They want to keep us happy. We are the loyal users, right? They want to keep us happy. They want to make sure their devices work well for us. But we're also loyal users. We're not going to go and switch to Android because liquid glass looks funny. Literally no Mac user or iPhone user is going to do that. It's not going to happen. So, but they do need to attract those people who are using Windows or Android now and offer them something that looks super cool and futuristic, and, oh, we can't get this in your old platform. So some of this stuff really is about attracting those new users. And while I certainly hope that old users are not being hurt by this, we are to an extent slightly second-class citizens in that intent.
One of the things we've run into in the service department is Apple's push to make all the service tools run under OS 26, which means the customer's devices have to be running OS 26 to complete service.
Really?
Yeah, system configuration on several of the, especially the MacBooks, the computer has to be running 26. And
so are you having to upgrade people?
yeah, we can call and ask. We can't complete the repair until we upgrade you to 26. So we're and well, so we thought about, well, we'll upgrade them to 26, complete the repair, and then downgrade. But downgrade is erase and reinstall everything. So that's
and
even
you
more
can't,
time.
and that's, I mean, I mean that will, if that's even, I mean, it's probably still possible now, but it will go away very soon.
Yeah.
So wow, I had no idea that was the case. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
So what if you have to repair an older device that can't upgrade to iOS 20 or to 26?
That's okay. But if the device is capable of it, it has to be doing it.
Wow. Huh. Learn something every day.
And
not that I'm happy to hear.
It always gives us these errors that, macOS is not up to date. Well, it's running 26. Oh, it's running 26.0. They haven't done the 0.1 patch yet. Any stupid.
So your tools actually want everything to be upgraded to the latest at all times.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
And
so the question is, I mean, I guess people don't really have a choice, generally speaking, but when they send things in for repair.
Mm-hmm.
But they should certainly be aware that this might happen to them when
we always
they do
call
this.
and ask before we do it, but it's frustrating that you have to do. What we have found is the general public doesn't know what OS they're running. They've ignored all the update messages. They don't care what OS they're running. They just don't want it to look different.
Right.
And so now this is the big one that looks different. The other weird change is there used to be pairing. If you replace a logic board, you have to replace the Touch ID because of the secure enclave. That made sense. Well, now on some models on OS 26, you don't have to replace the Touch ID. Well, that implies that someone could swap logic boards and have their Touch ID and get to the data, doesn't it? Because that was the whole point of having the Touch ID be a separate module that was paired to the logic board, and you couldn't just swap boards. Same thing with the lid angle sensor. So when you close the lid on your laptop, there used to be the Hall effect sensor, which was a little magnet. And so when the magnets got near each other, it created the Hall effect, which somebody won a prize for that. And so the computer knew the lid was closed and would turn off the display. Mm-hmm. Well, now they have an actual sensor, magnetic sensor, that recognizes when you lower the lid. And so when you replace the display, you have to replace the lid angle sensor. And it's frustrating because that adds an extra $50 to the repair if they're out of warranty, because it's a required part. So again, on the newest machines, it's on the M4 Pros, I think it is, where they've started doing that. You don't need to replace the lid angle sensor anymore, which is nice. But that Touch ID is really confusing on how they can maintain the security. You're putting a new logic board in anyway, I guess. Maybe it's a new board. There's no data on it.
Right. Yeah, right. So if there's nothing on it, then there's not really anything to lose.
Yeah.
So it can just repair. Yeah. So liquid glass. I think the big thing is that yes, it does look different. It really feels like it was designed for the iPhone and iPad, and so it's much more comfortable there than on the Mac. On the Mac, some of the stuff just is a little strange at times. On watchOS, I've just gotten to the point in my article where I'm talking about watchOS, and the same accessibility controls are available for watchOS, but because the UI on the watch is so small, they really can't do as much. And it's possible they don't have the processing power as well, but there's a few places where you get some stuff showing through and some blur and whatnot, and you can turn that off. But my experience is it's not really necessary. that there's not really big wins by turning liquid glass off on the watch. You might like it if you have trouble seeing the watch anyway, because it'll make things a little bit crisper and more easily read. But and I haven't looked at tvOS yet because I was writing this article and I'm like, I don't think my TV is updated. My Apple TV is updated yet, and no, it hadn't. So I had to go kick it to update earlier today, and I haven't had a chance to actually look and see how it's different.
Yeah, I'm waiting for my auto update to happen, and everything looks different.
Yeah, I was surprised that it hadn't happened by now. I mean, tvOS 26 has been out for a couple of weeks, so I would have expected a little bit sooner. But and then Vision Pro, who knows? I don't have a Vision Pro. I have no interest in getting one, so I'm not. I presume if you have a Vision Pro, you probably like this because it's a lot of the liquid glass stuff kind of took its inspiration from Vision OS interface elements that Apple had done originally there, because that's a place where you get full control over what everything looks like.
I was excited for the windowing interface on the iPad, but turns out my iPad Pro is too old.
We have an I forget what generation iPad Air, which I took over to be able to look at that, and I've just started to look at it. I have not significantly gotten around in it. I don't actually use the iPad for anything. I don't use an iPad for anything at all, so it will be probably a little difficult for me to comment how effective it really is. But I do, from a philosophical standpoint, I do sort of approve of them moving iPadOS more in the direction of macOS. I mean, there's a little bit of a question, for the longest time, people have been worried the Mac was going to go away and be replaced by the iPad, and clearly it's the other way around.
Didn't Phil Schiller stand in front of 100-foot no at a big keynote when they asked that?
Yeah. Apple's been very clear the whole time, but people have always worried about it. But this fact that the macOS windowing approach has taken over and has been added to iPadOS really shows it going in the direction.
Yeah, we don't mind the iPad looking like a Mac, but we don't want our Mac to look like an iPad.
Well, for good reason, right? There's you can do some things on the Mac that you simply can't on the iPad, and part of that is the whole multitasking windowing approach. So, I'm sitting here looking at these, 227-inch displays and a 14-inch, and I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 windows. So, without, any significant problems. So, and I can get to even more than that if I need to quickly. So, that's an effective system. One at a time is not always best.
And it goes to the power of the M series processors on what they can do.
Yeah.
One thing that I was surprised when I set up my iPad 426 was that I had the option to decide whether I'm sure it could be reversed, but that, yes, I could just continue in full screen mode, or I have the option. And I thought, man, that's brilliant, because for a lot of users and a lot of the people that we steer iPads toward, it is the ideal way for them to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a very, very good decision on Apple's part, because, think about it, like, an iPad used by a kid, they don't need windowing. They do one app at a time, at all times. Or, frankly, a whole lot of people who simply have fairly proscribed needs.
Yep.
They're simply not going to do that much.
Well, even when web tabs used to spawn a new tab or new window, when that started, and the back button didn't do anything anymore, because there is no window to go back to. It's a whole nother window. People are still thrown by that. Where'd my window go? What's behind the first one?
Yeah. I'd always end up with hundreds of tabs open in Safari, and I don't want these. Make them all go away.
That's how we found 500 tabs is the maximum on the iPhone. When someone tried to create 501, it says there's already 500 tabs open. You need to close some first. Fortunately, there's a close all button. And you didn't have to hit close 500 times.
and for your penance, human, you will be pushing this button 500 times. So it's interesting. there is a little bit of, I do feel a little bit of some of the change with liquid glass may also be a, hey, look over here at this shiny thing, rather than looking at what we're not doing with AI. And so, there's, definitely, Apple has been very clear to make no changes at all to the AI stuff. I mean, Siri is still stupid beyond belief, and possibly getting stupider. And that's not changing. But we're all talking about liquid glass.
And they're all quick to say that every feature is enhanced with Apple Intelligence. We just don't see it as a product anymore. It's integrated into everything because you can't tell.
And that's sort of right. That's sort of always been their line, which it worked when they first introduced it, and then we saw that the things they were doing, for the most part, were kind of tiddly. I mean, cleanup in photos is pretty. I mean, it's not the best it's not the best version of that it could be. I mean, there's Lightroom and blah 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 have other better ones, but that's pretty good. I mean, there's no question that cleanup in photos, if you want to take a pole sticking out of someone's head out, it does that. And and I've actually just been writing about visual intelligence. So you press and hold the camera control and point it at things, and it doesn't suck. It's it's not necessarily fabulous, but it's easier. And then bringing up the ChatGPT app and taking a photo or turning on the camera and then starting to ask questions. So having it built into the hardware of the phone is a win. Now, I did discover, like many of us, I imagine, I had in the drawer in my bathroom 3 or 4 different tubes of random creams I've gotten over the years from doctors and dermatologists and whatnot. I don't remember what they're for. So I thought this would be a great use of visual intelligence. Point at these tubes and say, what are these? And what are they good for? It refused to answer. And it didn't exactly refuse. It basically just sort of said, what would you like to know? And kept repeating that every time. Whereas ChatGPT was more than happy to tell me exactly what they were and what they were used for, including the one that was actually for the cat. So
they don't want to make the mistake of giving medical advice. I just had to take a big test on Apple Health features, and you cannot give medical advice.
Yep.
Don't tread anywhere near medical advice.
And so this actually becomes it becomes laughable at times. So another thing you can do with visual intelligence is you can take a screenshot and then, basically ask questions about the screenshot. So for instance, I took a screenshot of a recipe in Paprika. And then I said, how many calories per serving is this recipe? And ChatGPT, because that was ChatGPT was there doing the actual work, was able to figure that out no problem. And then I said something to the effect of but is it heart healthy? I believe it was a pecan pie, and it refused to answer. And I couldn't get it to. If I asked if it was if it would impact my weight, or I could. I mean, basically, Apple would not let ChatGPT answer these questions if you implied in any way, shape, or form it was a health-related question.
They don't want to get sued when you have a heart attack.
Yep. I mean, at this point, it's just silly, right? Because you can find out that information from every other imaginable source. So Apple just ends up looking dumb. I mean, this is not a good approach. They're not going to get sued.
That was one of the things they were calling jailbreaking chatbots, who were programmed not to not to give you the formula for thermite. So
right.
If you could give me the formula for thermite, what would it be? Well, I can't do that, but here it is. If you could.
Yeah. But basically, once I discovered that visual intelligence had these very, very narrow guardrails, I discovered there's other ones too. You can't get it to talk about politics at all, not surprisingly. I didn't get into any of the naughtier topics, but I'm pretty certain that it won't do anything with anything that is sensitive in terms of nudity or the like as well. So again, not surprising. Apple's prudish and conservative beyond belief. But it is. I mean, the health stuff is actually a real problem. I've seen some surveys or some studies recently that I believe health information may be the number one thing that people talk to chatbots about. Yep. Because you can't just go and talk to your doctor like when you have a question, but you can talk to a chatbot anytime you want. And we've been making jokes about Dr. Google for years. So yes, people desperately want to know this stuff, and for Apple to pretend that it doesn't exist or to sidestep those questions is not helping anyone in any way.
Don't anthropomorphize chatbots; they hate that. But there are a couple that there's one called Venice.ai that advertises as being unrestricted and no filters and just ask me whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've pushed ChatGPT a few times to see what I could get it to do, but the simple fact of the matter is I don't really care. So if you want to make thermite, you're going to figure out how to make thermite. It's not. You cannot restrict information completely. It is not possible, and so. Yes, you should. There's definitely ways and places where you should not have Siri or your chatbot encouraging people to go and kill themselves. So there needs to be thought put into safety, absolutely. But just providing information, particularly when it truly is innocuous information, like what's in this tube of what is news-suppressant anyway, No one's getting hurt. So,
Adam, for some reason this is bouncing in my head. The approach Apple's taking to what OpenAI is taking, notably this week or the last couple of weeks with Sora, and the idea that it's taking intellectual property and it's giving people the option to opt out of having their intellectual property utilized.
Yeah.
Is Apple playing so conservatively because of this, or is OpenAI just playing the wild west?
OpenAI is definitely playing wild west, and I'm sure that every movie studio has immediately filed all the paper, registered all of their copyrights, and I'm sure every publisher is doing so as well. It is the Wild West. I don't think Apple's playing it safe there so much as they simply have. I mean, Apple's got no game. Like, there's nothing going on, so there's nothing to protect. Even when Apple does have training the foundation models, the large language models. Apple has AppleBot, and so it goes out and crawls the web, and they announced, oh, yes, you can keep AppleBot out when they announced it, but they didn't say that, and we'll delete everything we've ever crawled from your site. I didn't ever hear Apple, admit they were going to eliminate all that information that might have been crawled from a site that subsequently decided to restrict access. So no one's clean here. And
I've read that most of the AI companies ignore robots.txt that says don't scrape me.
Many of them do, and then Cloudflare actually has some technical stuff that might come into play there. I'm of two minds with a lot of this stuff, because I think there's no question that we do have a kind of we have the concept of copyright, and the idea of it is to allow the person creating the content to benefit from it financially for some technically limited amount of time. But when it's 75 years after the creator's death, I don't see how that is limited in any useful way. So copyright regime is already kind of messed up. And a lot of the complaints are coming from organizations that are not really doing anything original anyway. So, one of the things my wife is doing now, she works for the School of Industrial and Labor Relations at Cornell, And they're very interested whenever any of their faculty are quoted in major media. And so they have a system that tracks all this stuff, so they know when this has happened. And so what she says she sees is that the New York Times or the Washington Post or whatever will have a big article that quotes someone, and then depending on the article, interestingly, a bazillion other publications will pick it up and basically rewrite the article. They're not copying it exactly. There's no copyright infringement involved, but they're not doing anything new or useful in any way. And so, is that something that should be super protected? I don't know. I mean, everyone's copying the New York Times to start with. So
aren't there a couple of lawsuits now about
that? Oh no, this has been going on for decades. This is the way the world works.
Yeah, well, right now specifically, I think the New York Times is suing ChatGPT and Anthropic. I think.
Yeah. But that's not. I mean, they are. But my point, what my point is that all these other publications have been copying each other forever, and that's seemingly okay. And so one of the things that in the various lawsuits that have been settled, Anthropic, which is the makers of Claude, just settled a lawsuit, they were found not to be infringing from having scanned a bunch of books to train Claude. What they were found to have done that was problematic was they got them from a pirate site. Which is totally commonplace. I mean, when I was doing the Take Control books, oh man, these things were, it was like whack-a-mole. So many sites that just had these things. Anytime a book was it's electronic, they'd get it and share it around, or if it was physical only, they'd scan it and put it up. And so basically, Anthropic paid a fair amount of money, like $1.5 billion, to settle this suit. Which is kind of interesting in the sense that basically they're saying, aha, there is a price here, and so they're not, that what they were doing is completely transformative. So they're not just copying it, and you can't just go and say, give me the text of this book. You might be able to get a quote from the book or a small amount of it, but that's not really how chatbots work, right? They don't just give you deterministic stuff. You certainly cannot get the whole book, or even any significant chunk of it. So the judges really did find that copyright infringement is not what's happening here, but you do have to get stuff in a legitimate way, and getting it from a pirate site is very much not legitimate.
Wasn't one of the AIs? Yeah, it was Anthropic. They were buying books, scanning them, and then destroying the printed book.
Yep. Totally legal. And so this is copyright law is about copying, and if one of the exceptions from that is what's called fair use, and one of the basic tenets of fair use is it transformative. If you do something different with it, it's not copyright infringement.
Yeah, they were arguing about that on MacBreak, that when you read a book, a copy of all the words is now in your brain.
Yep.
How is that different than a chatbot reading a book?
Precisely. And I mean, keep in mind, I publish for a living, right? I only make money based on the fact that people read my words, and and basically, I'm actually not too perturbed about chatbots knowing about my stuff, because it feels like exactly that. Like, I am highly incentivized to have you all know what I'm talking about. That's my goal in life, is to tell you things and convey information to you. And I like to think I'm doing it better than a lot of other people, so that if I get my information out there, then people will know more, do more things accurately. And honestly, I consider the same thing to be true of the chatbots. I would really prefer they had my information in them, because my information is correct.
So, but I gotta follow up on that. So you're comfortable with that, even without citation?
Okay.
No one reads the citations anyway.
People get their knickers in a twist over this kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is that I've been doing this for a very long time. I'm used to lots of people not citing me and copying my stuff. I mean, all the Mac news sites. I have had completely original, information or an article. I'd say reporting, but I don't really do reporting exactly. I would discover something and write up an article, and they would go write their version of it and not credit me. Does it hurt me? No. Does it help me when they do it? No, not really. I mean, it would be nice. But it's merely ego stroking. I've never been able to attach any value to that whatsoever. And the other simple fact of the matter is, the vast majority of everything that is written is not interesting. It just isn't. We are not talking Catcher in the Rye. We're not talking, even when I go write this article about liquid glass, I think it's going to be a good article about liquid glass. Is it breaking new ground? No. I didn't discover all this stuff. I've learned about it in other places.
Yeah,
These are facts.
How do you differentiate yourself from all the other authors that you have
Right.
read while you're learning this? Yeah.
Precisely. We run into this. This big issue of it's been determined you can't copyright a recipe, for instance. Recipes are facts. Phone books are facts. You can, when you're doing a recipe or a cookbook, what you're copyrighting, in fact, is the blurb at the top. The description of the recipe, and in fact, that's why food blogs have all that crap before the actual recipe, because that's the only thing they can protect. Everyone else can come in and just take their recipe. That's totally legitimate. And so there's a whole lot of, people make a big deal about credit, but it's more about politeness than anything else. It doesn't really do anything. And let's say for purposes of argument that I read about, here's a real example. Someone posted on Tidbit's talk about this guy on Blue Sky who found that there's a command line thing you can do to turn liquid glass off. And so, yes, I am crediting that guy and then the person on Tidbit's talk who added some useful stuff to it, because I think that's the right thing to do. But is that going to make a difference in their lives? No, it is not. And for all I know, this guy on Blue Sky, he might have read it somewhere else. Maybe he's not even the source. Where does it stop? And if I find something on, 6 colors, a fact that Jason Snell writes about, maybe Jason read about it, from somewhere else, and he didn't cite that because it was just a fact, and he's building it into another article. How do I know where it goes from? It might have been Apple. Might have read it from the support page. It's turtles all the way down. So, you can't ever get too wrapped up in this, because content is not actually that interesting. Says the guy who writes it for a living. I'm telling you, it's just not.
Well, that's why I'm so surprised that, and I'm not saying you're wrong by any means, Adam. That's why I'm surprised, though, at your attitude, that because most of the authors that I talk to, regardless of where they fall in the hierarchy, are, much more protective of everything. And they resent having their work utilized to improve the chatbots. And I've often wondered, because I kind of feel like your comment was it. If you can add accurate information to the zeitgeist, why is that a bad thing?
Let's say I read an article that informs some Apple consultant guy who goes to a conference and uses it in his talk, and lots of other Apple consultants hear about it, and they all go back and, wow, we know now how to do this thing right. Okay, good. Like, the world has been improved by this. I don't expect to get credit from each one of them or a micropayment or something like that. I'm not doing it for that reason.
If we started 1,000 years ago giving micropayments to every author we read, we'd be doing it better now.
And Aristotle would be raking in the dough. I'm just saying. Or the drachmas. You'd be raking in the drachmas. So the people who, if you to be concerned about this, you have to have some level of like how this is actually harming you. And that's a really interesting question, because let's say you're a fiction author, and you write, and you have a very well known universe protagonist, whatever. I mean, I guess it's conceivable that you could say that you were being harmed because people could use a chatbot to create a work that was derivative of your copyrighted, trademarked, possibly at that point, universe. But that's between you and them, not between you and the chatbot, right? I mean, that's the chatbot's not making any money, or actually technically it is, but it's not making any money directly from you in your stuff, or taking any money away from you and your stuff. It's the other person who's selling the stuff based on that. How they create it is irrelevant to the problem. So I don't know. I mean, clearly I'm not the dictator of the world, so I don't get to say. But I do feel like a lot of this stuff is kind of overblown in terms of how important it really is. Now, you can make different arguments if you want for the breaking of the advertising model, which I think is indeed happening. I personally will not be in the slightest bit sad if the advertising model goes away, despite having done the very first advertising on the internet of anyone in 1992. But the fact of the matter is that, yes, if you are using a chatbot as what I call an answer engine, because you have a question and you want it answered, you do not want to go and read things to try to find the answer in the various sources, because that would take you a lot more time. You're not going to go and read those other sources. You're just not. So I do feel like the whole we depend on Google traffic to feed us eyeballs so we can sell ads as a business model. That's going to be changing. No question, because it wasn't a good model to begin with. It didn't actually answer people's questions. It merely said, hey, you could go look over there.
So does that mean that the future of search is AI?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
We're seeing that already. Google, last quarter, they said their search results were down, but their AI results, AI use was up.
Yeah. I mean, I've been using, started with Perplexity and now ChatGPT when it added it. And I did a big article on comparing ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity and Google's AI mode and something called u.com. I came up with a macro that ran the same search across all four of them, and Arc can have split panes. And so I'd actually have 4 split panes, one for each one, and I'd go and I evaluated the answer in each one and kept a spreadsheet and everything. Did a big article about this a few months ago, and it's just better. It simply is. I mean, the only thing that I turn to Google for now is when I have a kind of a funny question, like I want to know if this exact quote was used somewhere. Like when you're putting things in quotes in Google, so that I need to know this exact string. You can't really do that very well with the chatbots. Or the one other thing that I sometimes end up using Google, essentially Google for, basically is I want to go to this website. That's it. I know what the website is. I just don't know what its URL is. Take me there. And so the chatbot search engines, I mean, they will if you have to ask them basically, give me a link to this page, which is sort of stupid because in Google you can just if you just type like the beginning of the site name, it'll take you there as the top link. So for search as navigation, the chatbots are not as good. But for answering any question, they're way better. Just inexcusably better.
I have found that I've been using Google so long that I can find what I want in like the first or second link with Google. But trying some of the other chatbots, they don't know me as well, so it takes longer, which is interesting. And looking back farther, how fast did we stop using Alta Vista when Google came out?
And the difference is, and what you might think about, is that you actually search differently in a chatbot. So when you're searching in Google, you are thinking in keywords. You're like, what are the words that are going to trigger the right document to have my answer? And that's a very different thought process than, here's my question.
Yep.
And so you do so with a chatbot, you really ask the question, and they all have like voice. You can click a microphone button and just talk to it, and that's often the best way to do it, because the more complete your question is, the more likely they are to get the absolute correct answer like that. And particularly if it's a situation where it's not a deterministic answer, where it's not like, what is the population of New York City, today, like that's an answer. But if it's the, rank the top state college systems by number of students, give me the top list of the top 10 state college systems by number of students. That's actually a fairly difficult question to answer. You might have to go to a couple of different sites to pull out all that information if you were just doing searches. But that's the kind of thing that a chatbot, an answer engine, can actually do for you, because it understands the concept of going out and getting information from multiple places and then combining it into the answer. So it really is a change in your thinking. Yeah. And so, there's no question that it's not. Google still has its uses, but as people more and more realize they can just ask the question they wanted to ask and not have to dither around with looking through this big long response and what I really want to know is, and then where in this document do I find my answer? I think the more like, and people also worry a lot about the accuracy. I'm going to tell you, a lot of stuff on the internet's just plain wrong. So it's not like you're guaranteed accuracy by doing a normal search and reading a source document.
That was always my joke about the chat GPTs hallucinating and other chatbots. There's so much they were learned on the internet. There's so much false stuff on the internet. It's not surprising that they make up stuff.
Yeah. One actually tip for anyone who's trying to do this stuff. Whenever you're using a chatbot to do a search of some sort where you actually really want information that's current, or want to see it going out and getting stuff, you can say search for, and that will trigger it to actually do a search. If you just ask a question, sometimes, and you can usually tell because it'll tell you what it's doing at the top, it will pull the information from its training data. Which isn't necessarily wrong, but the training data has always been cut off at a certain time, 6 months ago, 9 months ago, whatever. And so sometimes I will ask a question and it will tell me something. I'm like, no, that's wrong. Confirm that with a search. And it will go back out and go, oh, I'm so sorry, I was mistaken. What your answer is really such and such. And basically, it's the difference between the training data, which is now obsolete, and the current web search results, which are not obsolete. So that's a big thing to make sure you're doing to get current information. It's fairly common for me I do searches where I don't know the answer necessarily, but I know enough around the answer to go, it doesn't sound right. So it's if you really know nothing about the topic, you're more at risk. But if you have any kind of awareness of what you're talking about, you can do a pretty good job of directing them to make sure you get good answers. And you can always push them. It's like, are you sure that's right? Literally, you could say, are you sure that's right? And they will go out and confirm it.
Before you got here, I was using that exact example where, for the first time, ChatGPT lied to me, and
it didn't lie. It hallucinated politely.
Okay, but and so I asked it, why did you misrepresent this? And 4 minutes later, it chewed it out and basically apologized and said that it misinterpreted some of its sources. which was
Yeah.
really very interesting. But it's like, okay, so why did it misinterpret it in the first place when it clearly could determine it was wrong?
Well, but again, was the first answer from training data, and the second one was almost certainly a search because it was doing the thinking harder.
Maybe so. Good point.
Yeah, so that's usually the case in my experience. I mean, it is also possible, as Steve was saying, a lot of information on the internet is wrong. So, if the searches that it found wrong information, you're just up the creek.
There's a lot of talk these days too about vibe coding, and programmers
love me the vibe coding.
Yeah, well, the danger is programmers are getting laid off and fired because now we can just vibe code. But then the Microsoft pretty high up vice president talked about a program that was giving an out of bounds error, and they asked the vibe code to find out why. And so what it did is put a bounds check in. Well, no, why is it going out of bounds? Well, if you put this code in, it won't go out of bounds.
One of the things I sort of need to write about this at some point. A lot of the problems we're seeing with AI are not problems with AI. They're problems with people. And so this whole thing with, you can replace developers with vibe coding and whatnot. No, actually not, because in fact, coding is not necessarily the most important thing that developers do. I mean, what developers do is they define the problem, they figure out the solution, they figure out the strategies to get to the solution, they are aware of security issues or privacy issues, those kinds of things, and then they write the code, and then they test the code. And so, a lot of the things that we are concerned about, they're going to happen if you don't have a person involved, because you're not going to do all those other things. But if you are a developer, and you are making good use of these tools, you will hopefully be doing less of the really boring work of, just trying to slap some code out to get it actually to do the right thing. And you can focus on the more refined and difficult aspects of it. Now, that said, when I said I love me the vibe coding, I have actually written, I haven't got a chance, I haven't had time to work on it recently, but I have been writing I can't even find it on my screen. I have been writing an app, which is a timing app. I time running races, right? And stopwatch apps you would think would be a dime a dozen. And in fact, they are. There's a ton of them out there, and they're all terrible. And I know this because I do this seriously, and I care deeply about how my timing app works. And so, so I am writing a timing app that works the way I want it to work. And I'm doing this as a native iPhone app in Xcode where I know absolutely nothing. But I can define my problem. I can define I can tell it how I want the interface to look. I can, do all this kind of stuff. And so I'm the person who's, kind of doing all that, and it's doing the coding. Fine. Do the coding however you need to do it. And I will tell you if it doesn't work the way I want it to. And so it's the most fun I've had since HyperCard in terms of that. It actually brings development back down to the individual level. And no, I can't say I'm never going to sell this thing because I may be amused enough to try to do that at some point. But the fact is no, I do not anticipate this being a major app in any way, shape, or form. It's a stopwatch, for goodness sake.
But it's
going to be cool.
I got some of that when I played with Swift for a little bit, where you put this object here, you put that object there, and then you see in the other window, here's the code that does that. Well, that's pretty cool.
Yep. And that was really the HyperCard ethos, right? You have a card. I'm going to put a field here and a button here. And when I click the button, this happens in the field. Whoa, that's super cool. That's exactly what I want to do. And I don't have to be a programmer to figure that out. And so, this allows you to do even one step, above. Again, for me, this is in some ways little stuff. So, for instance, one of the problems with all stopwatch apps is they want to put a reset button where you can press it. How stupid is that? When you're timing a race, you do not want to accidentally reset your race. Ever. You want to go through multiple checks to actually be able to delete all of your times. And so, but simultaneously, they also want to give you a little itty bitty button to press the record a time. What if you're not looking? What if you're staring at the finish line? You want to be able to press the button without looking. It needs to be big and completely unmissable. And so, but no stopwatch actually makes it like that, so that you can do it without looking at the screen. Simple stuff, but again, no one else has done it, and my app will do it for me. And if I'm the only one who uses it, so be it. It will have solved my problem, and that's good enough for me.
Put it out in your running and biking community, and you'll find lots of other people that might give you a buck.
could be. Maybe I'll become a millionaire. Yeah. I should become one of those rich developers.
Yeah.
I'll make it make rude noises when you push the wrong button.
Yeah.
Then I'll get rich.
Yeah, the secret.
They'll probably just push it just for that reason.
That's not my problem.
Yeah.
It wasn't designed for that. But wow, we've gotten off topic, but as usual. But I will say, this is the example of why Apple is behind. That AI is the topic of conversation in the tech world right now. Everything comes down to AI in almost every tech conversation I end up in at this point. And so, the fact that Apple is not part of that conversation, except as in the, wow, Siri isn't any less stupid yet, is, I think that's indicative. And Apple is really, really going to have to get on that soon, or they risk becoming, in essence, plumbing. Yes, people will still buy iPhones, but they'll buy iPhones because that's the way they get to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever.
Did you see that Samsung commercial hitting at the iPhone? If you buy a phone because it says it has a feature coming soon, and coming soon has been a long time.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like Apple. I mean, Apple just didn't they just do an ad about the blue screen of death thing from the CrowdStrike? I saw something come through about that. So yeah, all these companies, whenever anyone makes a mistake, everyone else jumps on the bandwagon.
It's just that some mistakes are bigger than others.
Yeah, the blue screen of death one was pretty big.
Yeah, well, and so were the Androids catching fire too on planes. Yeah, that's.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Cheap lithium batteries turn out to be a real problem. I have a friend who's a retired firefighter, and she was saying that yes, like some really significant number of fires now are caused by cheap lithium batteries from China.
I find it funny because the 2200 milliamp hour battery in my phone lasts for 2 days, and the 2200 milliamp hour battery in my airplane lasts for 5 minutes.
But if your phone could fly,
yeah,
then we'd be curious.
Pulling 600 watts and.
But that's maybe a good place to wrap it up, because if you're spending money on these things, it's getting a little scary, because Anchor just had that big recall.
Yeah. And
they are a pretty good name. And so, were they buying from the wrong suppliers?
Yes, that was exactly it. Actually, they received a bad, well, not the suppliers necessarily, but they received a bad batch of cells, and that was what. And they basically put processes in place to identify it, and that's when they realized what they'd been doing. But yes, one of the basic rules is if something has a lithium-ion battery in it and it's really cheap, be worried. Do not be putting it in places where it could, if it ignited, if it could cause really significant fires. As it really, this really is a problem.
Is that bad? That it?
Yeah, right. When it's all bulgy and soft, that's not a good thing. We had Tanya's 11-inch MacBook Air, actually. At some point we're like, why is it wobbly?
Yep.
Oh, and we realized the battery had expanded and cracked, popped open the case, and we put it outside on the concrete deck. It didn't end up blowing up, but it was one of those things where you get a little worried, and It's best to be safe than sorry. So try to get devices, from legitimate vendors with quality batteries. Certainly, the cheaper it is, the more the worry. Someone just had a big article, Lumafield, something like that. There was a company that scanned. They had some technology that allowed them to scan batteries, and they sort of like X-ray-ish kind of things. And they found that a really significant percentage of the cheap batteries, like 8% or 12% or something like that, had shown signs that they would be failing in potentially concerning ways.
Yeah. Whatever happened to the battery company that was working on the lithium-ion batteries that you could just cut them and they'd be fine?
Yeah, David Pogue did a PBS, I think it was Nova episode on that.
Hey, I haven't heard about that.
They used a solid capacitor instead of liquid capacitance fluid. And so there was no danger of blowing up, and he would cut pieces of it off, and the total battery capacity would drop. But the battery kept running the iPad they were showing on, and it was like 10 or 12 years ago now.
That's super cool. Yeah, we should find out what's happening with them. I wonder if it just wasn't like long-lived, or didn't had some other technology manufacturing problem, because that sounds like it would be great right now.
A lot of it is the what do they call it? The energy density.
Yeah.
So the batteries would have to be so much bigger at the same density as a lithium-ion battery.
Right, and then you can't have an iPhone Air if your battery isn't dense enough. So
yeah. So speaking of David Pogue, have you seen his new book?
No.
The Apple, the First 50 Years.
Oh yes, I heard about that. I haven't seen it though.
The videos I've seen are cool. It's available for pre-order now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
no one's seen it yet. That's the answer there.
Well, the people that are reviewing it have seen it.
David's a very funny guy, so I'm sure it'll be amusing.
Yeah. Anything else, Adam? You want to enlighten us on?
So many things now. No, I mean basically, I've been really working on the liquid glass stuff a lot, because I do think it's one of the things that's important to realize also, as much as I'm a little negative about it, as are many other people, and other people are much less so. And there's ways to turn it off, but it is here, and it's here to stay. It's not like Apple's going to go, oh, so sorry, our bad, we're going back to the old stuff. That's not going to happen. So, there is a level of, I think, the utility of criticizing, in the formal term of being critical, is to basically try to help Apple improve it. And, it is going to be the interface we're going to have for the next, 5 or 10 years. And so we may as well, provide the feedback now of what we want to see, because in, 3 or 4 years, when you say, hey, this isn't so readable, Apple's like, yeah, we know. We've been there. We decided not to do anything about it. So, the chance to have input, I believe, is fairly early. And that's why it's worth, making sure, use the Apple feedback page, whatever it is, to say, this isn't working for me. And that's, if we can help drive it in a direction to make it more readable and make it more functional, then hopefully we all win.
I want to talk a little bit about the iPhone Air. Reading your article, it's not the iPhone 17 Air, it's the iPhone Air.
Yeah,
that's positioned. It's in the middle of the product line with a better processor than the 17, but worse cameras. And I've been reading stories from people who bought the Air and said, I wish I hadn't, because that second camera comes in so handy.
It's a very interesting device, and where I kind of came down on it is it really feels to me like a proof of concept. The most obvious end result is a foldable phone.
Yeah.
But basically, this is super thin, but if you put two of them together, now it's less thin, but wow, look at this, you can do the opening thing.
And it's the fastest camera bump they've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be kind of interesting. I mean, I guess, right, if we're going at the foldable, I don't know how the foldable ones do with bumps. But yeah, it's, I mean, I thought about it for a while, but it's weird because it's more expensive than the 17, but worse than the 17 in most of the ways that I think most people care about. Um, it is thin and light. Jason Snell, I was just reading Jason Snell's review of it, but he even says, like, if you're going to put a case on it, don't get it. That you then lose the whole thin and light thing. And personally, I always have a case on a phone. I mean, I realize there are people who don't, but I every year drop my phone several times in ways that would break it. I'm careful, but they're offering, they're even with the case, they're sometimes slippery, or they're carrying too much, or whatever it is. Accidents happen, and yes, I have Apple Care, but I'd prefer not to be triggering it, at random bad times just because I, had the phone slip out of my fingers. And when they're not in the case, I guess the Air is even more so this way. They're really slippery. I mean, they're not easy to hold. And so, it really doesn't take much, particularly when your fingers are dry or something, to have this thing hit the ground when you're not expecting it. So, I'm not a big fan of the iPhone here. I don't think it's going to be all that successful for Apple, but I feel as though they're using it as a technology test bed more than anything else.
And the fact that it doesn't have a 17 in the name, does it mean it stays when the 18 comes out?
I mean, if you look back at the other ones like that, they just become generations. So we have the iPhone SE, same thing. Yeah. We had 3 generations of the SE. Will we get an iPhone 17e? I don't know. Yeah. I mean, sort of seems likely if Apple's going to keep that one around, and that appears in the spring. So yeah, it is a funny device, and I'm a little unhappy because once again, everyone who wants a smaller iPhone is out of luck. We don't have that. But after the 12 mini and the 13 mini, which were not that small, but even still, people liked them. Apple seems to be going in the other direction. So I don't know. Yeah.
What's interesting from an engineering standpoint is on all the new phones, the logic board and camera and all that stuff is in that camera bump. The whole rest of the phone is battery. And in the first iPhones, it was like 2/3 logic board and 1/3 battery. So it's getting it down really tiny there.
Yeah, Rick.
Yes, I was wondering whatever happened to the cases that used to have like a hand dongle on it that you could just hang your phone. I mean, don't they make those anywhere?
I'm not quite sure what you're describing.
Well, it's like a loop that they used to be able to put it over your wrist. They used your phone. So if you accidentally started to drop your phone,
Apple
you're okay.
Crossbody straps now.
Smartish, this is a Smartish case. I like their cases. Mm-hmm. They have something like that. It basically goes through the holes at the bottom and gives you a wrist strap.
Yeah.
Those things exist. I mean, I'm sure that there's times when we were just on the Rivery, right? On the cruise, I'm like, I really don't want to drop my phone in the water. That would have been really handy to have right then. Overall, I think I would not. It would feel like it was getting in the way, but I could see if there was a way to attach it and detach it relatively quickly. The crossbody strap, as Steve said, also, I thought that looked kind of interesting. Tanya's started carrying her phone. You'll get a kick out of this. It's an old conference badge holder, because some of those are pretty big, and this one is actually big enough to hold her entire phone, and it's got a fairly long loop, so she can wear it kind of as a little purse. It's basically a crossbody strap, bigger than that. Yeah. Let's see, do I have one?
It's buried.
I don't have one handy.
Yeah.
But so it's just really funny because the crossbody strap is basically she kind of invented the crossbody strap for herself in this particular way.
We've been selling the Bandolier brand for several generations. It's more of a fashion brand than it is a a practical brand with rhinestones and jewels. But the funny thing is, it has like little pockets where you would put your bullets in a bandolier. so you can slide the credit cards down on some of them, and people that carry only a phone and their ID and a credit card. But now you have Apple Pay and don't need to carry the credit card anyway.
I like the idea of having bullets in my iPhone bandolier.
I never know when you might need them.
Yeah, if nothing else, just as an intimidation factor. I gotta look this up. Thank you.
I was going to say I hadn't heard about these either, but look at this, and looks like you could probably get silver bullets in case you're dealing with vampires.
Yeah.
Or you're the Lone Ranger.
I think that's for werewolves.
Oh, is this werewolves? Oh, right. Well, vampires are wooden stakes. Sorry.
The trick that everyone forgets, it's the werewolf has to be shot by a gun with a silver bullet by someone who loves him enough to care.
This group has way too much time on its hands.
They have a ton of these crossbody straps. Yeah, they're kind of clever looking.
And Apple did have a couple of versions that had loops on them. So a little wrist loop too.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of third-party ones.
It's going to be interesting. But yeah, I see what you mean by these are mostly style-based. Clearly, for when you're wearing the dress that doesn't have room for anything else.
Yeah. Make a woman happy. Put pockets in her dress.
Wow. Well, we should probably wrap it up. I'm kind of losing it a little bit, honestly.
We're after the silver bullet discussion. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Adam. Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, nice to see everybody. I assume you haven't had any in-person meetings for a while, or did you have any over the summer?
We had our picnic.
Oh, excellent.
In fact, David Chamberlain, he was our host. I don't know if he's back there listening or just entered the chat and then left again.
Yeah, Adam, you should come out to our picnic next summer.
But it's on Wednesday night, yeah.
Wednesday nights be a little tough to get back from, but hey. Well, actually, the problem with your meetings is they really do conflict with my Finger Lakes Runners Club board meetings. No, it's the second Wednesday of every month. So, and actually this one, worked out for October because we switched back to Zoom. We've been having the meetings in person for a few months because it was such nice weather. We could. And the pandemic is over, I guess. Like, who knew? So it's like, okay, we'll have our board meeting, and then I get 15 minutes to eat dinner, and then I have to jump on to this next presentation and talk to all my friends in Rochester. So, all right. Well, it's been fabulous seeing you all, and we will have to do it again next time.
Yep, sounds good.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Ciao. Good night.
Good evening. Good night.
And Chuck, we'll do this again soon, some other time.
Yes, we will, Adam.
For real.
Yes, for real. When you're not in board meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
During the days are fine.
Yeah.
All right. Good. I can work with that.
Good.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Anyone have any? We'll do a quick Q&A and then call it a night here.
I do have one.
Sure, go ahead.
I have a iPad, the 6th edition, so it's kind of old, but I play a game on it, and instead of using my fingers all the time, I had found this pen that had a rubber tip, so I've been using that, but I wondered, is there something that, like a stylus or something you can buy to do that?
There are styluses that have rubber tips like that. The pen was kind of the combination. You get a pen at one end and the stylus at the other end, so that you only have one thing to lose.
Okay.
You said iPad 6th gen?
Yes.
I'm checking, but I don't believe. Yeah, that will work with the Apple Pencil 1st generation.
I have the Apple Pencil, but I tried to. Am I supposed to use the point or the end?
Yeah, there's the pointy end and there's the charging port end.
Well, so this end?
Yeah. The other end should be a charging port. Well,
Yes.
the other end has a cap over the charging port that you always lose.
Right. Well, I did, but nothing happens when I use the pencil.
Let me see.
Oh, well, you know what? If the
You might have to pair it.
Yeah, if the pencil isn't charged, will that make
work.
it?
Yeah. You have to
Okay.
charge it up. So if you plug the pencil into the iPad, that will
Yes.
charge it and pair it.
Okay. Now I am having trouble with the iPad maintaining a charge. It uses it fast.
Could be the battery is weak because it's an old iPad.
Right.
It's about $100 for a new battery. $350 for a new iPad.
Okay.
10th generation of the regular iPad. No, 11th generation of the iPad nothing.
Okay. And then, well, what would be your recommendation? If I had 350?
Probably. So the 6th gen model came out in 2018.
Yeah.
And so we're currently on the 11th generation, so you're 5 generations old.
Yeah.
It's a little rough to put that much money into something so old.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
You're stuck 2 versions behind because you can only go to OS 17.
Oh, okay. Okay, and then the other thing is the AirPods. I'm confused about them. Like, is the Pro 2 better than?
Well, there's 2 lines. There's the AirPods and then the AirPods Pro. The AirPods Pro have better noise cancellation. They have better sound. They're physically smaller, but they're more expensive. They're $250.
Okay.
Then the regular AirPods come in regular version and a noise cancellation version. The noise cancellation version costs a little more, but it does active noise cancellation, where with the regular AirPods are pretty much like any headset, where the tighter you can shove them in your ear, the better it cancels. It blocks outside noise.
Okay. That helps me, believe it or not. And then the other thing is, I don't know if T-Mobile's still doing it, but they were offering a free iPhone 17 Pro.
Pretty much all the carriers are offering some free something or other.
Okay.
Depends on what their current promotions are.
Okay, everybody. So who has Verizon and who has T-Mobile?
I have Mint Mobile.
Okay. But you used to have T-Mobile, right?
I use T-Mobile, but I have a very basic plan. I only spend $10 a year.
Yeah, I've got T-Mobile. Yeah, it looks like T-Mobile is trade in any phone in any condition and get $1,000 off your iPhone 17 Pro. Or an iPhone 17 for free.
Okay.
So we have found, well, especially where we are in Victor, T-Mobile works a little better. There must be have a tower near us. And we have found that T-Mobile has better plans, less expensive plans for more minutes than AT&T and Verizon, which are the big powerhouses.
Well, isn't T-Mobile supposed to be have better service now than Verizon?
They all claim they're best at something, whether it's service or coverage or fewer dropped calls.
Okay. All right, I got it. I got the gist of it. Okay, so everybody can go to bed now.
Including you.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, there, I was as brief as could be.
You got the info you needed.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
Okay. iPad, Safari. I was reading an article, or I was on a website, probably like Google News or something, and I wanted to save an article in or open it in a new tab, because I use Chrome a lot on both the iPad and the Mac, but and it's easy enough to do there. But on the iPad in Safari, I think the only choice it gave me was to open the article in a new tab group.
Tap and hold on the link should let you do a new tab.
Okay, all right, I'll practice that then.
And
I figure,
tab groups are a new feature where you can have groups of tabs. So you're researching cars, that's one group. You're researching airplanes, that's another group. It's
okay.
Things that a lot of people don't use.
Okay. But the thing is that now I only seem to have that new tab group. How do I find if the other original tab group is hiding in here anywhere?
I don't know how well this will show, but I did a tap and hold. Oh, it's not showing at all because it's trying to blur my background. I did a tap and hold, and it brought up all of the options.
That's a single finger tap?
Remove, yes, there we go. Remove all. Done. Now you can see behind me.
All right, hang on, I'm going to move this sucker to full screen. Come on, machine, you can do it. No, I got to change that. Hang on, here, Matt.
Tap and hold. It's not going to work because I can't see.
What, is that a single finger tap or double finger, two finger tap or what?
Single finger. And then I got
single finger tap and hold.
Tap and hold, and it pops up a menu with all the different options in it.
And I can see the second one down is open a new tab.
Yeah.
Okay. So having done what I did do though about the tab group thing, does that mean that the original group of tabs is in here somewhere if I know how to find it?
Yeah, in the upper right corner is the tab command, and that will, if you tap on that, it will show you all your open tabs.
Right, I've done that.
One of the menus, so here, whoops, this way, it says 16 tabs somewhere. Tap on that, and it shows you all your tab groups. Right there. So you can go to the other groups.
All right, thank you. I'll play with that. This is a great meeting, guys. And
chucking at them.
Do you have those stylus things at the shop?
I'm pretty sure we have a few, yeah.
Okay.
I have gotten plain styluses at like Staples.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've got a fancy one with a Swarovski?
Oh, Swarovski, yeah.
There's a crystal on the end of it.
Oh, I like that. Sparkle. And if I have some things that I want to see if you could solve, on consignment for me, do I make an appointment with you or just come in?
You can just come in, or you can go onto our website and do a service ticket, and one of the options is in the description of problem, put in consignment potential.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Okay. And so now would you have any iPads that are like not what else old as mine, but I mean newer that are brand new? And
yeah,
you know what?
Yep, we do have some used iPads. Let me go to our website.
You mean used iPads never used?
No, used iPads that were traded in.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I just put a 9th gen out today. We sometimes have what we call yesterday iPads.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, let's see. Where is our yesterday consignment used? Let's just search for yesterday. We may not have any. Yesterday folio, keyboard. Nah, just keyboards. We don't have any yesterday iPads left.
Okay.
But our consignment and used products, go to tablets. got a 10th gen. I just put a 9th gen out today, and we got a 6th gen like you have.
Oh, $150.
Cellular.
Okay, mine doesn't hit
Yeah.
cellular.
An iPad Pro.
Okay.
So the 9th gen we don't have up on the website yet. So that'll be a little less because it's a little bit older. So better than your 6th gen, but not the full 350 for a new one.
Okay.
Go to iPad. Regular iPad nothing. So there's the iPad mini, the iPad nothing, the iPad Air, and the iPad Pro. So 4 color options and 3 capacities. So starting at 350 with 128 storage. So your 6th gen might have 32 or 64 if you're lucky.
Yeah, okay. Okay. All right.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
I don't know what I'd do without you.
Let's hope we don't find out.
No, that for sure.
All right. Does anyone know if Bob is going to do green apples virtually?
Looks like he left already.
Yeah.
Well, if he does, are you going, Rick?
If he sends me an email in time, I wish he would send it at like 2 o'clock and not 3 o'clock when the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please intend to go.
Or 2:45 or something. Yeah.
Send him an email and ask if he's going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
This has been great.
There.
So when are you coming home, Charlie?
Maybe a week from now.
Okay, so you're thinking maybe you'll be home for the board meeting or not?
I either do that or I'll do it from the road.
Okay.
Well, I think it's great, Charlie, that you're going, just getting away when doing what you want.
Yeah.
It has its upsides.
That's good. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it.
Well, my girlfriend says we're old and we shouldn't have to do anything we don't want to do.
Oh, that sounds good. I like that.
So I'm going to say goodnight. It's been wonderful to see you all. And,
All right. We'll see you next week, then. Enjoy your trip.
Have fun. Safe travels.
Bye.
Bye.
Yep.
All right. Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.
See you soon.